Hey guys, welcome to the very first episode of the Brothers Boyd. I'm Chris, and this is my brother Josh. And what we wanted to do with this channel is kind of share with you just about comics in general and what we're reading right now and what you have the opportunity to read. We both have a very large affinity for comics. We love them. My favorite being Batman. Um, Although Batman is not the only comic that I read, but if you do love Batman, there are a lot of titles that you can read right now about Batman, not just Batman. You can read about the whole Batman family. Josh?
And you can see who my favorite is. I mean, Superman. I have been a Superman lifelong fan growing up. I've read it from back in the day when I was in high school all the way up till now, and I follow Superman. I'm a big DC reader, enjoy all the stuff DC does. Just recently have ventured out and started reading some Image stuff, following some of the writers I've read and reading along with their new creator on stuff there. So we're going to have a little bit of everything. Chris is my Marvel guy. I love the movies, but I don't read many of the Marvel comics.
They're a little bit too complex for him. He just can't handle
Oh,
that much
yeah, right.
story.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Josh is going to lead us off with a comic, and we're just going to alternate back and forth talking about some number one issues this week. Since this is first show, why not start with number one issues?
All right, so my first book tonight is Naomi by Brian Michael Bendis, David Walker, and Jamal Campbell. That book ran for 6 issues, season 1, and it was part of the Wonder Comics line from DC Comics. Wonder Comics brought in the Teenage Heroes, and Naomi was a new hero Bendis and Walker created together. If you have been keeping up, she came from a different universe. She was from a different dimension. She comes in and has powers equal to Superman. She's pretty tough. And if you're interested in this one, she is working on her second season right now. They're doing Naomi season 2. And if you really want to get into it, the CW is airing the Naomi show within a couple of years of the book coming out. She already has her own show on TV.
Also, Josh didn't mention, but she is actually part of the Justice League now, which is super cool.
Yeah.
You're good?
Yep.
All right. My first book that I'm going to talk about, believe it or not, it's a Batman book, but it's not the Batman. I'm going to talk about Joker number 1. Okay, so if anybody has been following DC, they will know that last 2 years ago, we had this thing called Death Metal, where we kind of reset the whole DC universe. And we had this thing called Infinite Frontier, which is the start of the new DC universe. Well, during this time, we had something called A-Day happen. And what A-Day was basically a gas bomb was set off in Arkham Asylum, killing 500 plus inmates, prison guards, nurses, staff, and everything. Well, the one person who gets the blame for all this is, guess who? The Joker. And he's nowhere to be found right now. So this story starts out with really more a Commissioner Gordon story, as we find out that Gordon has now retired and is thinking about going into business on his own. He gets hired to go find and kill the Joker because they pretty much are sure that it was the Joker who set the bomb. This is a short series that started probably 2 years ago. It was drawn by the guy's name is Guillaume March. He is a very great artist. And the story itself was written by a recent Batman writer. His name is James Tynion. Very good writer who has actually branched out on his own to do a horror novel series. And he's going to be doing his own line of horror comics. The Joker leans more into the horror side. So if you're into a horror type comic, this is definitely something you want to look into. They started the line thinking it was going to be 14 books, but they have actually added a surprise 15th book, which should be out in the next couple of months. I don't know if you could find this now unless you find it collected, but if you like the Joker, if you're into that kind of story, I would say it's a great story to go ahead and grab. The writing is phenomenal. The artwork is phenomenal. They actually lean into a lot of the older Joker artwork, as you see some images from The Killing Joke and things like that as we kind of go through this story. But we're really going through this story from the perspective of Commissioner Gordon looking for the Joker. So it's a great pickup, and it was a great #1. And I've really enjoyed this story.
All right, my next book is Super Sons #1 by Peter J. Tomasi and Jorge Jimenez. One of the best developments I thought over the past few years was the introductions of Damian Wayne and Jonathan Kent. Really bringing in a new aspect to the life of Superman and Batman and making them fathers, having to raise a son and teach them how to be heroes. Tomasi and Jimenez build the Super Sons book as if it's one of the old World's Finest books, the Batman Superman team ups, and you really get the heart of the story between the two boys becoming friends and working together to solve crimes. This was part of the Rebirth a few years ago when they started with the Rebirth of DC Universe. It ran for I think about 16 issues, and then they moved on. They've moved to several mini-series, mini or maxi series of it. We had Adventures of the Super Sons and Challenge of the Super Sons that have come out. And Tomasi writes those as well. And they've been really great stories. Get a little background. I said one of the major issues recently that DC did, which was a bad thing, was to age up Jonathan Kent. We lost so many years with him growing up as a kid and so many stories we could have had. They're doing a lot of great things with him now, but these Super Son stories were really great books and really great stories, just to get you into that feeling of these two guys that, yeah, one day they probably will be Batman and Superman taking over for their dads, and seeing that friendship grow from the very beginning.
Cool. I just read Superman and it was Superman and Robin, a special, which actually reunited Robin with Damian with Jonathan as he's grown up. Really good special. Yeah. You should check that one out. That's a one shot, and it's a really good book. Yeah. We're gonna jump over to Marvel now. Woohoo, Marvel! Yay! So I am a fan of Peach Momoko. She is a great cover artist, and sometimes I pick up books based off solely her covers. And one of the ones I picked up and was pleasantly surprised with recently was Ghostwriter. This is a reboot for Ghostwriter. We actually have Johnny Blaze as Ghostwriter. And as we go and start reading this, Johnny is living at home with his wife and 2 kids, and everything looks normal. But as you go further into the book, you start to see these things are going on, and that we find out that Johnny has been trapped somewhere by a demon or something we don't know yet, and the story's just beginning, and all the people around him are actually not who they say they are, which brings him into falling back into the Johnny Blaze Ghostwriter character by the end of the book. I'm interested to see where this goes. This is something new. I actually have issue 2 at the house right now. I haven't read it yet. I just picked it up this weekend. But it's a fairly new run. So if it's something that you're interested in, you could actually go and pick this up at your local comic shop. This is written by Benjamin Percy, and the artwork is done. I can't think of the guy's name right now. It's Smith. Let me take a look real quick right here. Corey Smith would be the name. Artwork is really good. If you're into like a horror type comic, I know this is 2 straight horror comics for me, but they've kind of been working for me recently. Try out Ghostwriter. It's something new, and you're not too deep in that you can't start somewhere, and it's a good jump in point on something like that.
Horror's nothing new for you. We were watching Nightmare on Elm Street when we were kids.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Yeah, we saw Johnny Depp when he was just a baby.
Yes.
Before Amber Heard beat him up.
All right. My next book is once again another DC, but it is Superman Red and Blue. It's an anthology series that DC did. It was 6 issues. And I've got issue number 1 here. The entire book is drawn in nothing but the colors red and blue. It has about 6 stories in it, and it gives you an opportunity to see Superman in a different light and to see different aspects of his life. They gave the writers kind of carte blanche to go without making any major changes, and they told some really great stories. They do an amazing job. To me, it was amazing to see what they could do with only 2 colors. I know they've been doing Batman black and white for years, but this advent of seeing Superman in nothing but red and blue with the shading and the way they made it work was a really great take. Like I said, there were 6 issues of this, and I think DC is branching out with this because they've done this. They've done a Wonder Woman black and gold series, and was the Harley Quinn black, white, and red, I believe so.
It seems to be a thing that's going on a lot now. Marvel's even doing this. I have a collection at home right now. It's Elektra red, white, or black, white, and blood. So it's black, white, and red as the colors. And it's amazing what you can do with 3 colors to make a beautiful piece of artwork. All right, moving on to the next book. I'm staying in the Marvel line, but this time we're going into a little bit more fandom. Me being the huge Star Wars fan that I am, because I was there in 77 at the first one. I saw it in the theater. So, of course, I love anything Star Wars. I mean, and how great is it that we still have Star Wars? Since Marvel's kind of acquisition, or Disney's acquisition of Star Wars, we've seen a lot of movies and a lot of really good comics. And this past week was May the 4th, obviously. May the 4th be with you. Marvel released a 5-run series of comics about the one of the main Jedi in the story, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I was very excited about this because I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. I love Star Wars, but I kind of wanted to see what it would be like. And as I read this book last night, because I kind of read it last night when I got home, it basically starts out with an older Obi-Wan on Tatooine, and he knows something's coming, something bad. And he's talking about a storm, which they have dust storms in Tatooine all the time. But as he's talking this, we get a sudden jump back, and we go back and they tell a story about Obi-Wan when he is at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, which is something that we've never actually heard before. We know Obi-Wan from the prequels, we know from the Clone Wars, but we've never actually seen a story with Obi-Wan as a child. So it was very fascinating to actually get a story from the Jedi Temple. The artwork in this incredible. It's done by Anandito is his name. And the story itself is written by a guy named Christopher Cantwell. This also is a new run that's just started. There's 5 issues. So this may be a good hopping on point, because if you don't really want to commit to something for too long, 5 episodes or 5 stories and you're done. And then you could go on and read something else.
All right, so I'm going to take a jump from the DC universe and move into the Image universe. And I've been reading some Image books lately. One of those is one that really got me excited when the pandemic was going on and we were looking at things and they were trying to figure out what to do with the comic universe. Along comes Donny Cates, and he puts out a book called Crossover for Image, with art by Shaw. And the premise of the book is that the characters live in the real world, and one summer, the annual summer crossover from the comics blast into the real world. These characters start showing up in our world. They wind up putting a dome over the city, trying to contain it so there's not a lot of damage. And these characters are kind of looked at in a bad light. Well, the first issue is really interesting and intriguing because by the time you get to the end, you realize that Donny Cates has mentioned several characters from several universes that we normally don't think about seeing together. I think the way I looked at it when it first began was that we might see an Image DC Marvel thing going on.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, would be very interesting. And they even close with a shot of a picture of this kid is drawn of this guy with a cape and an S on his chest. And it makes you wonder, what is Donnie getting into over here at Image?
Hey, we've seen a Spawn and Batman crossover before, so why not?
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting. The book has gone so far to be meta. I'm still reading, it's still ongoing right now, but it's gone so far as to bring in the actual comic artists and writers into the story. So it's definitely an interesting take and an interesting read, and it's something that I feel like's never been done before in this way.
Imagine writing yourself into a comic.
Oh yeah.
How interesting is that?
Yeah,
you can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Staying on that Donny Cates note, I've been a huge fan of Donny Cates. One thing I wanted to tell you guys is I kind of had gotten out of reading comics, and then the pandemic hit, and we have a local comic book store where we live, and I kind of started slipping in there, and the next thing I know, I started finding all these books, and I'm like, hey, I might want to read comics while I'm stuck at home doing nothing. So one of the comics that I read through was Donny Cates' Venom, which he ran the Venom for 35 total comics, as well as giving us the Absolute Carnage storyline and the King in Black storyline, which was really amazing and a huge event in Marvel. And if you have the time, I would suggest going back and read it. It was one of my favorite stories of the past couple of years. And the villain Null that was created for this is pretty impressive. I put him on the level of a Thanos type villain, which hopefully one day we'll see in the MCU, but who knows. So Donnie left after 35 issues of Venom and started on a run on Hulk comics. And this started not too long ago. I think we're on issue number 6 now. I actually haven't read number 6 yet. But what Donnie has done with Hulk, and this is a pretty cool thing, is what he's done. He split Hulk into 3 separate personalities. So when you see the Hulk outside, he's gone to AIM, Bruce Banner has, and stole parts and placed them on the actual Hulk body to make him a spaceship. Bruce Banner lives in the Hulk's mind now, and he controls the spaceship, and the anger that is the Hulk exists in the engine room for this Hulk. Whenever Bruce needs to fight as the Hulk, he is able to elevate the power. He goes from 10 up to 100. And what this does is it creates these inner demons inside of the Hulk that he can fight. And we've gone anywhere from a larger than life Wolverine that he had to fight to actually one of the last things they did was they brought back in the Marvel zombies to fight in this imagined world so that the outside Hulk would have the power to fight what he was fighting. The whole point of this first book is when he creates this thing, he decides that he can't be on Earth anymore. So he leaves and jumps into a wormhole that Tony Stark has created with a celestial that comes from the Key in Black War. When he jumps into this wormhole, he's actually transported to another planet. And I could go into detail telling you what's going on now, but I think you would probably enjoy reading it for yourself. Cates is doing a really great job of telling this story. He's created a brand new villain who is first introduced in issue number 6. I haven't seen it yet. I can't wait to read it. But anytime you get a new villain or a new character created in a comic, you can always look at that as an investment into your product because you're going to get some value the first time that villain or that person or a hero shows up in a comic. And we all know that money just keeps going up, up, and up. And if these comics, if they keep releasing things movie and TV wise, then hey, you might be sitting on a small gold mine one day with all these characters.
You're right about that. All right, my next book is still an Image. I'm looking at a guy who's known for zombies, but this new series is a little bit different. Robert Kirkman and Chris Samney created a book called Firepower. And what he did for zombies with The Walking Dead, Kirkman has done for Kung Fu. He has created a story reminiscent of the old David Carradine Kung Fu show. he interestingly enough began the series. This is issue 1, but the series actually began with a prelude that was a graphic novel that was about 6 issues long when you look at it, that told the backstory of our main character. The first issue of the book jumps ahead about 15 years, and our main character is married with 2 teenage kids. He is a member of a order of Kung Fu who has been looking to learn the Fist of Fire. And the guy who was trying to teach it could never get it. And our main character learns it and is able to shoot fire from his fist. Everyone's after the power. And it's a really great story that includes not just him, but his wife, who is a cop, and his 2 teenage kids, and they go on an adventure together. This has been out for a while, but it is currently still running. I want to say they're on around issue 19 or 20 now. If you wanted to read it, you could always go back and get the trades and catch up, and then jump right in with the floppy issues. It's been a great book. It's got great artwork. It's just an amazing book.
Cool. I'm going to stay in that Marvel line. Not hitting on much DC tonight, but don't worry, we got plenty of DC. We'll get there. Yeah. If not this episode, maybe the next. I'm staying right with Marvel, and I'm starting with, there's a reboot that just happened of The Amazing Spider-Man. And this is being written by Zeb Wells, and the artwork is done by John Romita Jr., who is returning to Marvel after being at DC for quite some time. I love Romita's drawings of Spider-Man. I think he's a great artist who knows how to draw Spider-Man and draws him well.
Yeah, but Superman, not so much.
Yeah, well, it's an opinion. Everyone has one, but I do love his artwork. I'll be honest with you guys, I haven't read Spider-Man in years. I kind of had gotten away from it. I did read the recent Spider-Man life story, which if you haven't read that, you should check it out as we go through the years as Spider-Man. We start in the 60s, and each book represents a decade. And it's a really great story written by Chip Zdarsky,
yes,
who is like one of my favorite writers right now, who is going to be writing Batman in July. Woohoo! So excited for that. But back to Spider-Man. I picked this up not having read a Spider-Man in quite some time. Not sure what happened earlier, but the beginning of this book kind of shows Spider-Man all by himself. Peter Parker, we're talking about the Peter Parker Spider-Man, obviously. And then the next page, we go 6 months later, we come back to Spider-Man in the Bronx. I won't say he's not persona non grata, but he's just not very much liked by anyone. MJ won't answer his phone calls. None of his friends really talk to him. But there's a whole underground thing going on with the mob boss called Tombstone. And I think that's where this story is going. We started telling it a little bit in this story. This is a really good book to pick up. It just came out like the 1st of April. It's actually, it may have been the 1st of May. It's, here we are in May. This is the first book. It's the only one out right now. But here's the thing I kind of wanted to lean into a little bit on this. As I look at the cover of this book, this is legacy number 895. So we got 5 more books, and we're going to hit Amazing Spider-Man number 900. And Marvel and DC like to do up things really good when you hit those round numbers. So I'm super excited to have this in my pull list. And it's just a great jumping on point for anyone. I think kids, adults. I mean, if you love Spider-Man, it's a great read.
And you're looking, when you hit issue 900, those rounded numbers, when they hit those are collector's editions. You normally get a 80 page special on those numbers.
Exactly.
You get a big story. And with this starting with number 1, 5 issues in, that's probably going to be the culmination of the first arc.
Oh, absolutely.
That first story arc, and they'll do something big with that.
Also, just to mention, this book also was double size, so there's more of a story in here than what you normally get with a book. So that was a surprising thing as well.
All right, and
back to you.
My last book is once again an Image, but this one is called Radiant Black, and writer Kyle Higgins, who was coming from Boom. As a kid, I grew up watching Power Rangers, and he was writing the Power Rangers comics when they first started coming out at Boom. And they've done an updated story. he was head writer when they did the Shattered Grid storyline that brought in Evil Tommy, Lord Draken, and it really boosted the story level and the ideas of that universe. Well, he did such a good job. He was able to get an Image and do his own creator line, and he is bringing superheroes back to the Image universe. Radiant Black is the first of the superhero line in a massive verse, is what they've called it. They've introduced Rogue Sun, Radiant Red, and they're even working on a few others now. This first book was interesting to me because it's not your typical superhero story. Our main character moves home after failing at writing. He's broke. He's living at his mom and dad's, and he's out one night and finds this floating object. And when he touches it, he gets this new superpower, this suit, the Radiant suit. And him and his buddy are testing it out and doing all kinds of stuff. And lo and behold, by the end of the book, they think he's unique. He's this new superhero. And out of the bank, holding a bag of cash, is Radiant Red. So you're introduced to a villain in that first one. The books go on in this series to introduce even more colors. It kind of has a Power Ranger type feel to the different Radiants, but it's a more adult, grown up line. The whole idea of this guy who was down on his luck, just average Joe becoming a superhero, is a great story.
Kind of sounds like Shazam's story as we see him learning his powers too.
Yes.
And yeah, it kind of gives me a Shazam feel. Although I'm all for any new superheroes, and I haven't read that yet, so that's probably going to be one I have to check out at some point in time. So we'll jump on to my last book, and this will be the last one for tonight. I'm going to I want to wind up with Batman. Surprise, surprise. So this is not just your typical Batman. This is a Black Label Batman comic called One But Dark Night. And the interesting thing about this book is it is both written and drawn by the artist and writer named Jock. He goes by that name. That's Jock. The whole premise of this book is we are moving a villain from Blackgate prison from Arkham to Blackgate. The villain's name is EMP, and obviously, as you know, EMP, if they get activated, they will kill power everywhere. Well, shortly into this very short 6-mile trip across Gotham to get him into the new prison, they are ambushed. Batman is following in his bat plane, and they are ambushed, and EMP gets loose. He heads for the one place in Gotham that is full of neon lighting, and the neon feeds his power. And of course, you know what happens. All the power goes out. So we get one dark night. We have 8 hours until daylight, and we have about 5 miles that Batman himself on foot has to get this villain all the way across town to Blackgate Prison. This is a 3-issue shot right here. This is book number 1. Book number 2 was recently just released. Have not read it yet. I'm excited for that one. Kind of waiting to hopefully maybe see all 3 of them at one time, because I like to read that way sometimes. But this one right here is a good pickup. This is done in a magazine style format, a little bit bigger than your normal comic. Pages are very crisp and unique, and the artwork is just outstanding. We'll probably share some of the pictures up here by our heads here as we go through this. And so, yeah, so definitely a pickup. A little bit more than a normal comic. You're looking to pay a couple more dollars extra, but if you really like Batman, I would definitely recommend it.
Oh, and 5 miles sounds like nothing, but you know Gotham, Batman is not going to have an easy time.
Oh, and did I also mention that there's a map in the end of the book which shows all of the gangs who are all aimed at and heading for their position. So not only will he have to travel through Gotham, he's going to have to fight off some gangs. So we'll see how that goes in the future. So that's all we've got for you tonight. We're so excited to have this channel up and running now. We hope that you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, click that like and subscribe button. Tell your friends about it. And also, just remember, all of these books came from a local shop. Our buddy Andy, that runs a shop here in New Bern, does a great job of keeping us supplied with stuff to read, and
Oh yeah,
hopefully stuff that we can talk about every week.
keeps our libraries full and our wallets thin.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, it gets a little expensive here and there. You know, Free Comic Book Day almost broke us yesterday,
Yeah.
or actually Saturday. So yeah, absolutely like and subscribe if you like it. We are so thankful for anybody who has watched this. We hope you enjoyed what you heard. We hope we maybe created some new readers who just didn't realize that comics were what they are. And if you're not reading right now, you're missing out on some really great stories and some really great artwork. I'm really loving a lot of the artwork. I even have some of my favorites here that are just more and more. The artwork is just what sells the book to me almost before the writing even gets to it. Click that like, click that subscribe, give us a like and a subscribe. We look forward to seeing you next time. And if we don't see you here, hopefully we will see you at the shop